And welcome to another episode of Ed on the Bed. This is Ed. I'm on my bed, and this is my podcast. Um, Intro song to this episode, Master P. I miss my homies. Um, if you hear it, it's it's trying to give a message of Master P and Pimp C and Silk the Shocker are rapping about how they miss people that have passed away and everything, and it's kind of a corny ghetto song, but it was the kind of song that when it came out, my friends and I would sing all the time. Remember we were in class once. I think it was sophomore year, and we had this balloon that we would take with us to all the classes, and we drew a face on it and everything. And for some reason, the teacher in that class popped the balloon. So from then on, that was our song to the balloon. Um, and we'd always laugh and had fun with that song. Um, and it kind of just brings, it 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 kind of brings a light mood to a topic that's not so light. And I think that's what I'm pretty much going to talk about today. Um, 14 years ago today, July 13th, 2001, uh, is when my best friend passed away. This was a Friday the 13th. It was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I believe, Eastern Standard Time in Miami. My best friend, Christian Balboa, who had turned 20 just a few days before this, was exiting the parking lot of where his business is at, and he was in a murder suicide. Um, I'll go into that a little bit later. Uh, but it's one of those things where 14 years later, I mean, I still think about it. Um, I'd never cried as much as I did when he passed away. There's only two times that I've cried as strongly as I did, and that was one time, and the other one was when my father passed away. But um, this was completely unexpected, to say the least. And it sucked because Christian was always the kind of person that um, I always kind of planned that he was gonna be always a part of my life. I know I was young, and I have my mind on other stuff, but I always kind of figured out that Balboa would have been the best man at my wedding, the godfather of my son, uh, and so on, and to like this is Balboa and we'd hang out almost every day, and if not, we definitely talked every day. But if we hang out almost every day, and we did almost everything together, and to me, he was a brother, and I don't know. It's so like to have that taken away. It's not. I don't wish that on anybody. Um, to kind of start off, to tell you about Balboa. He I met him. I think I was in 7th grade, and this is when I was going to Our Lady of Charity in Miami, and we'd play other private schools, and he went to another private school called Edison. And I always remembered him because he was one of the more athletic people on his team, and I believe I had and when we had a track meet, I had ran against him, and when we played basketball, I had to guard him. And I always just remembered, like, this guy was basically like the enemy, the arch rival, and so that he always stood out to me as, oh, it's this guy again. And I never really liked him at first at that time. Yeah, I didn't even know him, but I just didn't like him. But mostly because I'd always be the opponent, or he'd be my opponent. Um, and it wasn't until high school where we ended up going to the same high school, and we were freshmen summer school class. It was a morning class, and we ended up having it together alongside some of our other friends, PETA, and who else was in that class? Gonzalo, a few other people, and basically we'd all talk about basketball and basketball. It was just all about the Miami Heat, and that was everything. We would basically just always be talking about. Um, and to um from there on out, we kind of started our own little clique and our own group of friends. And yeah, I had my own, even though I was a part of the detention squad and all this, there was this group that I was with them, where we'd hang out every weekend. We'd hang out with school nights as well. We'd and we were kind of part of like all the crews. Like when you stereotype people in school, you have the jocks, you have the nerds, you have the rockers, you have the goths, you have everything. This crew was kind of like in the middle. Like they could just get along with everybody, and there wasn't any problems. And I think that's what I enjoyed about hanging out with Balboa and PETA and Gonzalo and Lewis and Alex and Richard, and I'm probably forgetting a few people, but oh well, and there's Floby. But yeah, they're that's what I liked about that group there, and but whatever we do would mostly be Balboa and I hanging out, and then we'd meet up with the rest of the group. Balboa was one of the first people to drive, and I remember he'd come and pick me up in his sister's car. His sister's car it was a Ford Probe, and on the front decal, on the window, was a sticker that said "Girl Power." So that was always very interesting to be driving around with and have that right there on the car. But fuck it. If you blast, if you get in that car and you just blast some hard music, if you blast some Noriega, what, that changes everything. Even though your car still says "Girl Power." But yeah, we'd go to Balbo and I were basically, if we had to go to the mall, we'd go to the mall together. If one of us had to go, oh, I gotta go get my oil changed or something, we'd go together. We basically did everything together, and man, I got like so many stories with him. From all the stuff we did in high school to going to Cancun to the senior trip up to Orlando and Disney World. just all the bars and clubs and parties. And I man, I could go into all of them. But I think the most memorable thing about him, I mean, this kid, he came from a family that was rich. His family was rich. Um, he was athletic, very social, very kind kid. Like there, he had basically, and this isn't me kissing his ass because he's not around anymore. No, I mean this was an all-around good kid, and I say it because there was one time, I think it was around my 18th birthday, I believe, and before that, a month before that, we got into an argument or a fight, and we weren't talking. We got into a big fight, and we just stopped talking. And he it was my fault. Yeah, I mean it wasn't my fault, but it was the argument was over something stupid, and I know I was making a big deal about it, and I know I should have just squashed it, and I didn't, because I was, because of pride and because of just my mentality of an asshole and everything, and I just wasn't gonna let down. And about a month later was my birthday, and I remember I invited a whole bunch of people in my house and everything, and one of the first people to show up to my house was Balboa. I didn't invite him, but he showed up. He knocks on my door. I open it up. I see he's there. He tells me, Ed, I just wanted to come over to wish you happy birthday. Uh, I'm wishing you the best. I don't, I'm sorry that we're still not talking or whatever, but I still consider you a friend, and I wanted to pass by and wish you a happy birthday. If you don't want me around, I can leave right now. And I understand it's not a problem. I just wanted to come and tell you this. And like it took a lot. It took a lot for him to do that, because he was the bigger man in that situation. Here I was being just a piece of shit, and he was the bigger man to come up and just like apologize for something he totally didn't. I mean, I completely forgot the argument, but I know I was the one who should have squashed it, and I didn't. And instead he did, and I'll always remember that. And like, yeah, that was always like a memorable moment. Um, with him, and it would always define to me the kind of person he was. Um, he another, and as I mentioned, we did a whole Cancun trip where it was myself, Balboa, and our friend Alex. And my memory's so bad right now that I don't remember if there was actually a fourth member with us or not. I don't think so. But I do remember just like how much fun we had there, and how basically for the 6 nights, 7 days we were there, I couldn't go out every night. I went out almost every other night just because of just how drunk I'd get. And that I just couldn't party that hard. Little did I know what the future held for me. But yeah, Cancun's a different animal. I'm sure I can manage it now, but it was funny just just waking up in the morning and just hating life, and then getting ready to do it all over again at nighttime, and all of us just trying to pump each other up by listening to Outkast and whatever other freestyle and new wave songs we brought with us. which Balboa brought along in his boombox, and and I figured out how to break like lock. I figured out how to break the locks of mini bars, so I was pretty popular just opening up mini bar locks, getting drunk, on the house because I'd basically just lock it up once again, and no one would be the wiser. At least I didn't get a fee for that, so that was all good. Um, yeah, that was that was a good time, and it was one of those things where like there's so many things that happened there that I can't even talk about, and like he's one of those. He's one of the few people I could talk to about it. He's just like it's hard not to have him around, you know. Um, and to kind of go into what happened with him, um, like I said, excuse me. Like I said, he was he was pretty wealthy. He came from a good background. His family, great people. Um, his parents his dad was a very serious like businessman. At least I always in my presence I noticed he was always a very serious guy. But his mom was just like the life of the party. She was just like very energetic, very social, very friendly, very funny lady. Balboa loved his parents. I remember he'd tell me stories how he'd sometimes get home like around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he'd find his parents awake, prank calling people, and that he would just sit back and look at his parents prank call people and laugh at what they're doing. Um, and like that's the family like he had. Like it was a great family. They were always taking vacations, and they were always they they always helped out like their cousins and their aunts and uncles and everything. They were very generous people as well. Um, he also had a sister who was also very laid back, very cool. Her and her friends would always, anytime I hung out, always made me feel, like it's cool to hang out with them as well. So I always appreciated that. And he his family owned the reason because of their wealth was they owned a chain of beauty schools in South Florida, and business was booming. Business was really well, and Christian and I, when we both graduated high school, we all went to school and everything, and we were basically the ones who'd kind of skip skip classes together to the point where Balboa is just like, you know what, fuck this. I'm just gonna go straight to work. I'll inherit some part of the business that my parents have anyway, so I might as well just learn by working there and gain experience through there. Um, which was cool for him. I mean, he did the administrative part of the whole business. No, he wasn't cutting hair or anything, or doing mani pedis or anything. No, he was all just the administration part, and he liked it. He enjoyed it, and it was cool because he got to spend time with his parents. He got to spend time with his sister, and it you could see that he was maturing, and this was good for him, and that this was gonna be his future. Um, uh, Around the same time, And now this is getting kind of into details, but I say these details because it's stuff that I feel people need to know. And in case you ever find yourself in similar scenarios or whatnot. Um, he, I remember one day he tells me he's, like on a lunch break, and that one of the secretaries there, uh, he's there with a whole bunch of his coworkers there, and all the coworkers are tell Balboa that his secretary, who was there at the table with them, was was telling them that she had a dream about being with Balboa in a sexual encounter, and that it was really good. And they all kind of made fun of her for it, and they laughed about it, and they joked about it. Um, and then for some reason, that same night, I don't know why, maybe it just got into his head. But he then had the same dream, or he had a similar dream about this secretary, and before you know it, they kind of went out a few times. The thing is that she was married. Uh, she from what I don't know much about her, or I didn't know much about her. She had just came from Cuba, and she got to Miami. She married this guy who was a firefighter, and she got a job there working at the beauty school as a secretary. And she Balboa would get along with her and her husband. Like they were going to the same gym, and they'd sometimes hang out at the same business outing, like the company outings and events and stuff like that. And they started having an affair, um, which was pretty easy because since he was a firefighter, there was that thing where like he wasn't around all the time. He would, he'd have to be at the fire station, stay there for, I don't know what the rule is, but he'd stay at the fire station and then not be there. And then, so they'd always coordinate to meet up during those times, and that kind of lasted for like a good month and a half, um, until the point where I think Balboa started feeling bad about what was going on because, like I said, he knew the husband, and he just realized that this wasn't right, and that maybe she was looking for something more. And and Balboa realized that he shouldn't continue this, and he just cut it off and he stopped it. Um, but there was times where I'd be hanging out with Balboa, I'd remember, and we would talk about like let's go hang out here, let's go hang out over there, and um sure enough, like I'd be hanging out with Balboa and his phone would just ring nonstop, and it would be her calling him and like sending messages, like asking him where he's at. And I remember one time we're like at the Miccosukee Casino, just gambling there, having fun. She she calls him up after the phone's been ringing 5 times, so he finally decides to pick up. Tells her that he can hang out, and so it was one of those scenarios where uh it was like she just kept calling, like she called like around 5 times, and he was just like, I'm just gonna pick up the phone and just kind of be cold. So he was like, no, I'm at the casino, and she just basically invited herself to come out to the casino, and Chris was just like, let's get the fuck out of here, she's on her way. Let's just get out of here. She's just crazy. This bitch is crazy. Let's get the fuck out of here. And we left, and it started getting bad because every time we'd hang out, his phone would blow up all the time, and he wouldn't answer. He'd avoid it. He didn't know what to do, and he had already made it clear to her that he did not want to pursue this anymore, and for some reason she didn't want to understand. Um, I remember hearing sometimes he'd get scared about scenarios that I think maybe she'd put him in. I remember there was one night that he got so scared about what was going on that he showed up to a friend of ours' house, and he was just freaked out, and she never saw him like that, and like he didn't want to say what it was, but it was referring to her, uh to this person, and it just like, I don't know. Like sometimes you realize people are crazy. Sometimes you realize that people have issues, and you never truly expect it to go any further than what it should have. Um, so and I don't know if you guys heard, it was in one of the prior episodes. I kind of told you about stuff that the way he had some dreams that were that he was scared of, some nightmares that he was scared of, that he was gonna get shot. He also had there was some weird stuff that it was going on in his building that I kind of mentioned, and what ended up happening was July 13th, 2001. It was around 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon, I believe. He was getting out of work, and he had to go to the bank to deposit all the weekly checks from all the students to the bank. And from what I had understood, it's a two-person job, and they would it would be scheduled, and they would all kind of like they would take everyone would take turns to go, and this time it was him going with her, and from what eyewitnesses say is they were heading towards the car. He was driving his dad's car. They hop into his dad's car. They're arguing while they're getting into the car, and before he can pull out of the parking lot, it seems that she pulled out a gun, shot him twice, and then shot herself. She died instantly, and he passed away while being airlifted to the hospital. Um, it's it's a tough story, man. It's the kind of tough story that like you don't like. It sounds like a movie. It just does not sound real. It doesn't sound like that's the kind that always happens to someone else. And when it happens to like this close, it's still it's still hard to comprehend. And I don't know. The only thing as I said, the only thing I remember was being just feeling so depressed and just so bad, and nervous and just sad and everything until, like I said, I went up to his until the day of his wake, and then I had gone up to his casket, and as I mentioned in the other episode, I felt like someone was hugging me, like someone threw a warm blanket over me, and it felt like he was there, and it was like his way of letting me know that everything was alright, and I felt relieved. And I could never, I'll never be able to explain that feeling, but I just felt so relieved and so warm and just so much better. Um, and I know he's in a better place, but I still wish he was here. Like, I wish he was here, and I could tell you this, like we can't predict how crazy people are gonna be, and like what scenarios things can happen. But I was fortunate enough to be able to tell Balboa that to me he was a brother, and that I loved him as a brother, and that he knew how much uh he meant to me. And I remember I was fortunate enough to be able to tell him that while he was around. And I think that's what I guess the message I want to make sure I tell all of you. Like, if you have, good friends around you and you have people around you, appreciate them and let them know who they are. Um, that, and just be careful out there. Be careful on who you go out with. Be careful. Just when you think of just hooking up is hooking up, but you you don't know who you're hooking up with sometimes. And that always kind of stays in my head, and it should you should always kind of keep that in mind as well. um but yeah, again, I'm sorry, this isn't like the best of episodes, compared to other ones. I had another friend of mine who also happens to be named Christian, who had told me that he likes my podcast, but he likes how I keep them. I should keep them lighthearted, and this is definitely not lighthearted, but today's the day, and I can't forget that day. Um, but with that being said, I won't forget him either, and the reason I won't forget him is because of the life he lived, and that I was fortunate enough to be a part of it. And even though it was such even though it was unexpected, like I said, I know he's in a better place, and I've always expected him to be in a better place because he deserved it. Um, but yeah, that's basically it. I'm probably gonna end it here because I just kind of wanted to keep it on this topic and this topic alone. Um, but thanks for listening. Uh, and I appreciate your time. And until next time. All right. Thanks.